The SEALs were just seconds away from being overrun. They were out of time, out of options, and almost out of ammo. Then, a single plane appeared against the starlit sky. A warthog, flown by the one pilot even the most hardened soldiers on the battlefield feared. Tonight, the desert would remember her name. Night in the desert carries a strange kind of silence, a quiet that can either be peaceful or terrifying. For the 6 men of SEAL Team Bravo, pinned down against a wall of jagged rock, it was pure terror. The air was thick with the scent of gunpowder and the metallic temps of fear. Enemy fighters, shadows moving with deadly intent, were closing in from all sides. Their numbers were overwhelming. Communication lines were dead. No backup was coming. Commander Miller, his face etched with grit and the grim reality of their situation, finally spoke the words no one wanted to hear. His voice, usually a steady beacon, was raspy. Airstrike, it's our last option. He relayed their own coordinates. A final, desperate gamble. A danger-close strike. The team braced for the inevitable, for the thunderous roar that would either save them or consume them all. The seconds stretched into an eternity. They held their breath, waiting. Then, a sound emerged from the darkness. It wasn't the high-pitched scream of a modern jet. It was something else. Something heavy, guttural, and utterly unmistakable. The growl of an A-10 Warthog. And everyone knew there was only one pilot who flew with that kind of audacity. Valkyrie. She was a legend. A ghost in the machine, known for one thing, turning absolute chaos into absolute silence. Her plane, a silhouette of vengeance, dipped once through the starlight, a silent promise. Then, it vanished behind a ridge. For a heart-stopping moment, there was nothing. The SEALs exchanged glances, a question in their eyes. Did they imagine it? Then, the ground itself tore open. A series of massive explosions painted the canyon in flashes of brilliant gold. Enemy mortar positions vanished in blossoms of fire and earth. Supply trucks were tossed into the air like toys. The enemy fighters, once so confident, scattered in panic and confusion. But the SEALs didn't hear the iconic BRRRT of the Warthog's cannon. Not yet. All they heard was a calm, steady voice over their comms. A voice that cut through the pandemonium like a surgeon's scalpel. Targets acquired. Stay low. Bravo. I'm cleaning house. It was Valkyrie. She flew low. Impossibly low. Spoo. Lower than any pilot in their right mind would ever dare. Her Warthog seemed to scrape the canyon floor, a beast of metal and fire weaving through the treacherous terrain. Each pass was a masterclass in controlled destruction. She wasn't just dropping bombs. She was strategically dismantling the enemy's formation, carving a path for the SEALs to escape. Tore. Another pass, and a heavy machine gun nest disappeared in a cloud of shrapnel. Another, and the enemy's advance was halted in its tracks. Miller, watching the spectacle unfold, let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He keyed his mic, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and relief. That's why we trust her with our lives. He whispered to his team. Look at her. Fly. She was their guardian angel, armed with a 7-barrel cannon. When the dust finally began to settle, a new kind of silence fell over the battlefield. It wasn't the silence of fear anymore, it was the silence of survival. The air was still. The enemy threat neutralized. The SEALs began to move, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence, toward their extraction point. A pose. Above them, the Warthogs circled, a silent sentinel watching over them, its dark form a comforting presence against the slowly lightening sky. At the extraction zone, as the helicopter descended, Valkyrie's A-10 made one final pass. She dipped her wings in a silent salute. There was no heroic speech, no triumphant radio call, just duty, perfectly executed. And then she was gone, melting back into the night as mysteriously as she had arrived. Back at the forward operating base, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by exhaustion and gratitude. A young SEAL, his face still smudged with desert dust, finally asked the question on everyone's mind. Commander, who is she? Really? Miller allowed a small, rare smile to touch his lips. He looked out into the night, in the direction she had flown. She doesn't just drop bombs, he said, his voice quiet but firm. She saves lives. That's why we call her Valkyrie, because when she arrives on the battlefield, even death itself turns and runs away.